With just 22 days to go until Election Day in America, a brand new CNN poll of polls showing a virtual tie between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Harris is responding this morning and over the weekend to the dark rhetoric and fear-mongering Donald Trump has been using. Listen.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of Election Day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics.
Because you see, Donald Trump cares more about scaring people, creating fear, running on a problem instead of what real leaders do, which is to participate in fixing problems.
Joining us now, Pete Seat, former White House spokesperson in George W. Bush's administration, and Democratic strategist and former White House director of message planning, Meghan Hayes. Thank you both for coming on this morning. Pete, I'm going to start with you. Donald Trump using rancid language against fellow Americans, calling them sick, calling them lunatics, saying they're bad people. He's not talking about politicians necessarily. He's just saying this sort of in general. I mean, how does the campaign defend the rhetoric that has been long used by autocrats?
Both campaigns are running on effectively the same message, Sarah, and that is fear. Donald Trump is stoking fear of illegal immigration and what he calls the far left to motivate those low propensity voters to come out and vote for him. And Kamala Harris is trying to stoke fear of Donald Trump. Just look at the rhetoric that Democrats use when they talk about Donald Trump. It's the same thing, trying to get those low propensity voters out. So we've got to recognize both sides are doing this. Both sides are playing the game of fear because that's how they think they're going to win this election.
It clearly is not the same way and saying the same things. Meghan, what do you think of what Pete just said?
I mean, I tend to agree that both sides are using fear. I do think Donald Trump's language is a little bit more divisive and more harmful, but this is Donald Trump being on message. His party wanted him to talk about immigration and not talk about some of the other things and throw personal jabs. So he is doing that, whether or not it's, going to be effective in the way he's saying it and the fear tactics that he's using and the sort of dark cloud that it comes about when he talks, whether that works with independent voters and, in the battleground states is yet to be seen. And it is really terrible that this is where our political system is, but, it does resonate with his base and it is resonating with people. Will it resonate with the right people to win the election? I think that's what we're, 22 days and we'll all see.
All right, Meghan, the Harris campaign is seeing the polling numbers showing there is some erosion of Black male voters and Latino voters' support. I want to take a look at the poll and what we've seen, and you're seeing those numbers there overall. Harris 78, Trump 15, women 83%, among likely Black voters, Trump 12, men 70% for Harris, 20% in this New York Times Siena College poll for Donald Trump, which is a big number. What do you attribute this slippage towards Donald Trump from the Black community?
I think that the Democratic Party has been seeing a shift in male voters for a long time and for a few cycles now, and I think that it's just catching up to us in a really critical moment. I think that part of the problem is the campaign has yet to find its footing in addressing this group of folks with authenticity and a genuine message to them. So I think that that's part of what she's doing today, releasing some policies directed directly at Black men. So hopefully that will resonate in doing some, like the Roland Martin interview, the Charlamagne the God interview, to reach out to those folks. But I think this is something the Democratic Party has been seeing over time. And it's a lack of finding a genuine voice and an authentic voice and to reach this group of folks.
Pete, what do you attribute this to? The Republicans and certainly Donald Trump has been trying to go after, for example, Black males and talked about, I think he said the word, I love Black males during one of his speeches. What do you attribute sort of this trickle of people that are going over to Donald Trump from the Democratic Party?
Well, I think both with Latino voters and Black voters, Trump is overperforming and Kamala Harris is underperforming because of the economy. That is the number one issue. Look at the New York Times Siena poll from over the weekend. Latino voters rated the economy as fair or poor. 80% of them did. 50% said it was poor. That is driving movement in Donald Trump's direction. Also, we can't forget resentment. The fact that these voters have been taken for granted by the Democratic Party for generations. They're expected to vote for a Democrat candidate. And if they're not seeing results in their wallets, in their pocketbooks, they're starting to turn towards Donald Trump, towards the Republican Party, because they want to see their families lifted up.
Meghan, where do you think the Democrats have the best hold? Because there was a lot of talk about Pennsylvania and how important Pennsylvania was. But Michigan is also, we heard from Debbie Dingell saying, no one so far has taken Michigan.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think anyone has a hold on any state or any, the blue wall, I don't think is necessarily a guarantee for the vice president. I think this race is back right where it was supposed to be. I think she got a nice bump after she became the top of the ticket in the convention, and then the sugar rush sort of wore off and we're back where we're supposed to be. And I think a lot of folks are now tuning in and looking at their different policies and their character. I would not underestimate how important character is going to be in this election. And the contrast that the vice president and the campaign are drawing is crucially important. And you'll see her crisscrossing into these battleground states to sort of get a hold. But this is going to be razor thin. And, I was there in 2020 when we didn't decide the election till Saturday. So I would expect something similar this time around, which, it's going to be down to the wire for both of them.
Pete, what is your concern if this is as razor thin as the polls are showing between the two of them, that we may not have a result right away?
I think it's a foregone conclusion that we won't have a result right away, and we all need to brace ourselves for that. There's going to be a lot of mail-in ballots, absentee ballots. It's going to take time to count these votes and get a final victor. This is a divided nation. It's going to be a very close election, and we need to be ready for that. Hopefully we know by the end of November, if not the middle of November.
All right, Pete Seat, Meghan Hayes, thank you both so much for coming on and having this chat with me. Appreciate it. John?